All right. We ready? My voice actually mostly kind of held out for this whole thing, which is shocking. Um, I'm just going to take a minute. I'm going to let Taylor, he's going to close us out here, but I just want to thank a few people, do a little Academy Award speech here. So just bear with me for 1 second. So obviously I want to thank Taylor first. Obviously none of us would be here without all his hard work and dedication to Laravel. Obviously I'm totally blown away by it. I know everybody else here is too, and it's really amazing what he's done. I'd like to thank the sponsors, obviously. Could not have done it without all the sponsors. The speakers for, agreeing to speak and sharing all this great information. I think there was a lot of really good talks. I want to thank Chris for doing the video. It's amazing. The community pitched in. For those of you who don't know, just like a week ago, we had no plan for video, and the community pitched in and donated money, and we have video. So now everybody's going to be able to see this at home, which is crazy. Thank Jess for organizing everything on the ground here in Washington, and all the food and the venues and just managing this whole process. And it's really been amazing. I think it's turned out, better than I could have expected. Yeah. She's like our secret event planning weapon, So I on a personal note, I just want to thank my wife. When I told her we were going to do this conference, like a couple weeks before we have a baby, she wasn't totally thrilled, maybe. So, but she's all aboard, and she's so happy with everything and the way it's turned out, and she's been keeping an eye on us. So it's been great, and I really appreciate that she let us do this. So that's good. Then I obviously want to thank all you guys, the attendees. Couldn't obviously have done it without you, and I tell Taylor this all the time, but I really think it's literally the very beginning. I know this is Laravel 4, but to me, this is really, really just the very beginning of Laravel and what's possible. And so I think it's really cool you guys are all kind of here on the ground floor. And in a few years, when it's Laracon is this monstrous thing and there's a sea of people out there, you're going to be like, I was at the first Laracon. It was a little room with amphitheater seating. It was great. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I just wanted 2 little announcements. All you guys have comment cards. If you could just fill those out, just help us for next year and the next events we do, that'd be great. There's going to be a basket on your way out on that little table. You could just drop them in there. And then tonight's the party, which starts at 7 at Hill Country, which is just around the corner. It's up on Lanyard now, so you can get the address and everything from up there. And if anybody has any questions about where it is, just grab one of us. It's on 7th Street, so it's really close, super close. And it's barbecue. We ate it the other day. It's ridiculous. You're going to love it. So it's going to be good. Drinks, food, all that kind of stuff. So there's like an hour gap. Basically, you can go back to hotel or rest or whatever you want to do, hang out. All right, and that's it. So we're going to let Taylor take us away and wrap it up. All right, here we go.
Okay, like Ian said, thanks so much for coming. This has been an awesome conference and just been chock full of tons of cool information. I think the speakers have been really good. I've enjoyed all the presentations. And thanks for being a part of it. I think it'll be very memorable for me, being the first conference, and maybe for you too. Like Ian said, you're here for the very first Laravel conference, and we're really just hitting the tip of the iceberg with Laravel. It's been just gaining steam faster and faster, it seems like. So who knows what the next conference will be like. We've been joking we'll have to rent the Verizon Center over here to have the next Laracon. But maybe so. Okay, so I started out the conference with Eloquence Emerging, and this talk's Eloquence Evolving. So the first talk kind of got us to today, to where Laravel is and kind of the past and what my vision was for Laravel. Why did I write it? What made me stay up at night and work on this framework. And for this last talk, I want to cover what I know a lot of you are curious about, is kind of what's the roadmap for the future. When's Laravel 4 coming out? When's Laravel 5, 6, 7 coming out? So that's what we're going to cover in this last talk, and maybe talk about a few features that I have in mind, or you can throw out a few features you have in mind, and we'll just kind of talk about the future. So one of the biggest complaints I think I've had about Laravel so far since the very beginning is development schedule and the fact that there isn't one. So I get this question all the time. Is Laravel, is it ever going to stabilize? It goes so fast, especially at the first, when Laravel first started. My gosh, we went from like Laravel 1 to Laravel 2 in like 3 days. And like everyone was just kind of nervous about upgrading their apps lately. And, of course, for businesses, this is really important. They want to know, is the release schedule going to be stable, and it's not just kind of my whims of when I feel like releasing a new version of the framework and changing everything. So, yeah, that's been one of the biggest complaints for the framework. And in the first panel discussion, we talked about programming heroes. So I'd like to quote one of mine, which is Eric Barnes. And that's, "Everything isn't always cakes and pies." So, yeah, the history of Laravel, that's probably been one of the biggest complaints. Everything hasn't been cakes and pies, as Eric would say. Now, we always laugh in the chat room about some of the regional dialects. We have Ian in New York and Eric in North Carolina, and I'm in Arkansas. So cakes and pies is a new one for me. He says it's from Deuce Bigelow, though. Anyway. Okay, so why hasn't there been a development schedule is a good question, really. And I thought about it a little bit. And kind of how we got here is, when I first wrote Laravel, I remember talking to my wife about it. I said, probably no one's ever going to use this but me. I'll just use it for my own projects. And if no one uses it, that's fine with me, because at least I'll have something cool to build these ideas on. So, I didn't really think about, I wasn't thinking long term. I just wasn't, because I wasn't planning at first to, be the next cool PHP framework. And also, once Laravel did come out, the people that use it, which is probably a lot of you here, they were kind of early adopter types that didn't really care about a fast-moving framework. And in fact, they thought it was kind of cool. Like, they were constantly getting new stuff to play with. And it just wasn't an issue for a lot of people, because I think maybe coming from CodeIgniter, it was kind of a change of pace. We're changing really fast, and we're getting a lot of cool stuff really fast. And also, the third point is, we were kind of playing catch-up. So we were kind of playing catch-up with CodeIgniter. We're playing catch-up with Symfony. We're playing catch-up eventually with frameworks like Rails and other languages. And so we were just like coding hardcore, trying to get all these features, like improving the ORM, improving templating. And we weren't really thinking about a fixed development schedule. But as we've gotten to this point, I think with Laravel 3 and 4, it's becoming more apparent that we need to adopt some kind of official release process that other various frameworks and software solutions have adopted. And the reasons we want to do that are, it allows us to kind of break up our development into phases, which kind of goes along with Sean's talk, coincidentally. We can have kind of a planning phase, we can have an implementing phase, and then a beta phase, and then of course we can release it. So it allows us to kind of segment our time and kind of have some milestones and deadlines for when we're doing things, kind of keep the whole community on the same page. It also makes it more transparent for the developers. They kind of know more of what's going on. They don't have to kind of like ask an IRC, like, does anyone know what's happening behind the scenes, or read the GitHub commit log. So it's a lot more transparent. It also gives a predictable upgrade timeline. So if your business is building an app, the most common question I get on Twitter is, should I use Laravel 3 or should I use Laravel 4? And I totally understand that dilemma, because you really have no idea when the next version's coming out, and it could be pretty stable or stable enough, but you want to make sure you're using the version you should be. So if we have a release cycle, that really eliminates that question, because you know exactly when Laravel 4.2 is coming out, and you can make that decision. You can make a better educated decision. It also helps our package developers, like the Cardless guys who I talk to a lot. It gives them a kind of a time frame to know when are we going to need to make any changes in our packages that we need to. Or if you build bundles or packages, hey, in 3 months this feature's coming out, I can use this, so I'm going to kind of start getting prepared. So it helps you kind of stay ahead of the curve as a package developer. Like I said, it eliminates the which version should I use questions, and it just kind of makes us look a little more professional and mature, like we know what we're doing in Laravel world. Yeah, so it just kind of makes us a little more professional, I think. So one project that's recently adopted a release schedule, I'm surprised I didn't have one before actually, is Symphony, who's been around for like 7 or 8 years. And they've adopted a 6-month cycle. And what these colors mean, I think, is you kind of have this yellow is the development phase, and then the blue is their release date, and the green is their kind of support period. So they're kind of going like a Ubuntu, and with Symfony 2.3, which is actually in May of 2013, you can see it has like a really long green bar. That's an LTS. So they're going to do long-term support on that release, which is coming up here in a few months. Symfony 2.2 actually should be out any day, I guess. That comes out at the end of February. And so this, you can see they have this all the way out here to 2017. And so it's really great for just knowing what's coming when. I mean, even though they don't have features attached to each one of these versions, you at least know a new point release is coming at that point in time every May and November. So what we've decided to do is actually adopt the same schedule. We'll follow a 6-month pattern, and we're going to have 2 months of planning, and that will be kind of laying out what features we want, things like that, what milestones we want to hit, and the community will be a big part of that, kind of taking into account what have people been asking for, what have people been struggling with, and we can kind of plan that out. Then we'll have 4 months of development, and then we'll have 2 months of stabilization. So the stabilization phase would be like the beta phase, kind of like we're in now with Laravel 4. We'll have several betas, release candidates, stuff like that, and clean up any tests we need to do, or write tests, and also fix any bugs. Now, if you're the type that likes to live on the bleeding edge, you can actually use Composer and just say like when Laravel 4.0 comes out, that very day you could actually go into your Composer and say, I want Laravel 4.1.x. You would just keep riding that wave of updates, that bleeding edge. If you just like to kind of live dangerously on the edge like that. So, it kind of fits that early adopter type. If you want to stay like that, you're kind of just the hacker type. You want all the coolest, latest stuff. You can just hop to the next version the day that the previous version comes out. And Composer is really great about that. That's one of the awesome features of Composer. So let me just talk a little bit about each phase and kind of what will happen there. The planning phase, we're going to decide the big things to tackle, like I mentioned. Like, say, we want to build, some image resizer. This is not a real feature on the drawing board, but we would decide that. We would kind of estimate how long we think that's going to take, get some input from the community if someone else is actually building the feature. We would also do incremental improvements. So like not every release, not everything that goes into a release has to be some huge thing. We could add little stuff like a little helper method, some little thing onto Eloquent to make your life easier, things like that. And we'll kind of estimate our time and pick like, okay, we think we can take on these 2 things that are kind of in our backlog or kind of in our minds, and we're going to try to hit those in the next point release. So, and then we'll just the features that don't make it just get pushed to the next planning phase, and we can decide then. So, I think this will be really great for just helping us kind of discipline ourselves and keep the community kind of in a cadence of releases and planning and stabilization. So then we hit the development phase. This is where we'll actually do all the hard work, implement the major features. We'll add any incremental improvements, like I mentioned, any small improvements. But also I do want to point out that just because you don't get your little small improvement, like in a pull request before the planning phase or before the implementation phase, we're still going to accept, just like small incremental improvements, even though it wasn't like discussed in the planning phase. So like 2 months into implementation, say Aaron comes up with this cool Eloquent method that is pretty simple to implement. We're going to pull that in. It's not like we're going to say, no, we have to wait like 3 months to get that in. So, yeah, we're still going to take small improvements too. So you don't have to worry about getting stuff like that rejected and having to wait like 6 months. Okay, so does that make sense? Sound good? Then we hit stabilization, which is where we do our betas and release candidates. This also gives the ecosystem kind of time to catch up. So we get our beta out there. Guys like Ben, who's working on Sentry. It gives him a couple months to kind of look at that, see if he needs to do anything. He might not. But gives them time to catch up, get the next version of their package ready, get people testing it, they're playing with it. It also lets us look at any upstream issues, like if something changes upstream in like the Symfony HTTP foundation, we can address that during that stabilization period, like if they made a breaking change, what they're not supposed to do after 2.3. But we can address that. At this point, we would enter kind of a bug fix only phase. So we're not going to be doing any major new features. We're going to be mainly fixing bugs, or if we add anything, something very incremental or small. And this is when we would also start planning the next release. So we put out our beta for, let's say, Laravel 4.1. While that's kind of stabilizing, we're starting to discuss Laravel 4.2, picking out the features we want to add, maybe features that didn't get picked last time or that we just didn't have time for, and start charting those out, estimating the time on those. So the Laravel 4 release date will be in May. Hope that's not too disappointing, but so we will actually release, around the same time that Symfony does at the end of May. We'll be on the Symfony 2.3 LTS, so we'll have like a good solid foundation of no breaking changes for a while upstream, which will be convenient for me. It also gives us a couple months to, even though I don't have any huge new features planned for Laravel 4.0 at this point, it gives me a few months to kind of flesh out the documentation a little more, clean up some of the workbench rough edges. I want to add some of the test helpers that Jeffrey Wade demonstrated, and just generally kind of polish some rough edges, nothing big, but kind of just put some finishing touches on it. We also, the documentation will not look like it does now with the plain white. It'll be integrated with the Laravel design, so it gives us some time to do that. Okay, so then what? Since we're following a release schedule, I can tell you the next 3-4 releases. So Laravel 4.1 will come out in November 2013, Laravel 4.2 in May 2014, and then 4.3 in November 2014. So every May and November, we'll have a point release of Laravel 4. There's currently no plans for Laravel 5, so we'll be on this Laravel 4.x thing for the foreseeable future. And I think this would be really nice. If you're a business, then you can count on these point releases. You know when they're going to be coming, and you know which version you can start using. So I think it's going to be very predictable. I think it's going to help the adoption of the framework within the more businessy, enterprisey world, where it's kind of been primarily in the smaller startup, small dev shop world. It's going to bring, it's going to alleviate some of the apprehension for bigger companies, because they can see that the framework's stabilized, it's following a release process, and is generally just more trustworthy. So does that make sense? I can take any questions real quick if there's anything about the release process before I move on to some feature stuff.
How long will each point version be supported for?
Kind of my thinking right now is to just say we're going to implement security fixes just like forever. I mean, if there's a big security bug in one of the releases, like I feel like we probably need to fix that. So I'm not really setting anything like in stone, you know what I mean, kind of like Symfony did. I'm just going to try to kind of see how it goes and just kind of give my word that we're going to fix security issues, for a really long time. And I think we'll just kind of evaluate it, see how things go. But I haven't set anything in stone yet. But of course, we'll have Symfony support for like 2 years. Security fixes there, so. Ben?
If you're, say you're up to 4.3 and you find this big bug that wipes everybody's server or something in 4.1, are you going to be maintaining like, the old, where you've got like 4.1/master and all that in your GitHub repos and all that?
So what we'll have is, I don't know if you know how Composer does this, but once Laravel 4 comes out, we'll have a 4.0 branch in GitHub, and Composer and packages will actually recognize that. And if you're on 4.0.x in Composer, you'll continue to get updates on that branch. So like when I release Laravel 4.2, for example, I'll have a 4.2 branch and a 4.2 tag. And then if we're on 4.4 currently and there's a security bug in 4.2, I would switch to that branch, make the update and push it, and when you Composer update, you would get it if you're on 4.2.x. So Composer makes that really easy for us to go back and backport or fix security bugs, and you'll still get the updates.
How transparent, I guess, is this whole process going to be as far as, I guess, from planning to like we're looking at you guys building your own tools to do this stuff, like just wikis or?
Yeah, I think we'll have to come up with some a place to make this discussion more transparent, because making like a GitHub issue doesn't really make sense. So we're going to have to come up with something to kind of make the internal kind of team discussion and maybe the community voicing their opinion. We're going to have to figure out a forum to make that more transparent. I'm not really sure what the best way to do that is right now. I think that's something we can start discussing now that we kind of know where we're heading, and as a community we can start discussing it. And if there's some tools you guys have in mind, you can throw them out there. And yeah, we definitely need a better way to do that than GitHub, I think. Sound good?
Are we going to note the kinds of things in documentation as to what we're going to support with what?
Yeah, so I think we'll continue to do in the final Laravel 4 release, like we did with Laravel 3, with including the docs actually tagged with the version. Because that's really convenient, because if you have a certain Laravel version, you always have a copy of the docs with your version. What I want to do is when we release the final version of the docs, have a version selector where you can select, I want 4.0 docs or 4.1 docs or whatever, which would be kind of cool. I think we can just pull those from like the GitHub API, so we could easily be able to show like different versions, since they're all in Markdown on GitHub, and that's how we show them, is like we hit GitHub every time. So yeah, I think that's going to be pretty doable. Okay, so next I just want to talk about some of the features in Laravel 4 and even 4.1 and 4.2 that kind of we're batting around so far. One is improved profiler. If you've used Laravel 4 right now, you've noticed that the little profile debugger bar thing that Dale built is not in the release. We're actually working on that. It's going to be really cool. One of the features is you'll be able to inject your own views into the bar to like build your own tabs into it. So if your company wants to add like kind of their own view into the debug bar for your own information, you can just kind of inject your own views. So it's going to be a little more extendable and not so locked down to just SQL and memory and time. So that's going to be pretty cool. Dale and I have been kind of batting around some ideas on that and working on it.
It'll be a separate request now as well, so you won't get CSS conflicts, which is a big pain with the last version. So
yeah, no CSS conflicts, he said. It's going to be a lot better. Dale's the man. He'll take care of us. Okay, so another thing was Zach's talk on the queue. He mentioned that one of the common use cases is email, and Ian mentioned that we use email, and that really speeds up our app request lifecycle. So we're actually going to add a mail queue. I'm pretty certain this will be in Laravel 4.0. So this will basically take care of putting the mail out on the queue for you, and we'll kind of easily wrap that up, because I feel like that's probably the most common use case for most people getting started with the queue. So we're going to make that really easy. We'll have the same syntax as mail send, actually, but we'll actually just use the queue on the back end. Okay, so in Laravel 4.1, this is one idea I've had. I'm interested to get feedback on this. I think I've mentioned it before, but basically like a cloud storage abstraction where you can say input file foo and then push that up to either like S3 or Rackspace, like make it driver based, get back the key, and then be able to generate like public URLs to it. So I'm kind of trying to think. I've been working a little more with some of these cloud services since a lot of people are using them, trying to figure out convenient ways to kind of wrap some of that stuff up. Maybe have like a cloud put with a file, make it easy to push stuff up if you're storing like attachments or images or something like that. So that's one kind of Laravel 4.1 feature I think we're going to talk about. We can discuss it during the planning phase. Another cool feature I've been talking about a little bit with Ian and Eric is this guy, PHP Artisan Deploy, which would actually let you deploy your application straight from the command line. And I think this would work similar to Fabric, just to kind of get, so you can kind of visualize it a little bit since I don't have any code, but where you would list your SSH commands, kind of like Fabric, but it would be pure PHP, and then you would call PHP Artisan Deploy, and then I think you would be able to say PHP Artisan Deploy Production, Deploy Development, stuff like that. So that could be pretty slick. I think that would be kind of a first for frameworks in any language, really. And then for Laravel 4.2, one idea I've been batting around, or we can even discuss it for 4.1, is like one of the holy grails for me personally, is some kind of like billing thing, or recurring billing. This is like kind of just a personal goal for me, is to abstract that, because it's such a pain. And like anytime I have to do something that's a pain, like password reminders, you notice that's a new feature in Laravel 4.0, password remind, password reset. Yeah. Usually if I have to write something that's very painful, it somehow puts a seed in my head to work it into Laravel. I have no idea what this would look like just some off the top of my head's things would be like some kind of billable trait that you could put on a user to subscribe them to plans or to work with their trial periods, and I think it had to be pretty opinionated. So like we say, like Stripe is kind of the new hot thing right now, so we're kind of going to tie in closely with them to kind of abstract some of that recurring billing stuff that a lot of kind of startup apps have, it seems like, have in common. Again, so since we're going to have a planning phase, this might get nixed. You know, we might say, we can't do this. This is too much. You know, this is too magical, or just too hard in general to abstract. So, but just some ideas. I do think the PHP Artisan deploy, the cloud storage thing, those are pretty doable. Those are within our reach, you know, in the next release or two. So another thing Dale and I have been talking about working on is more books beyond CodeBright. So I personally want to write like some more advanced like testing books or dependency injection, more architecture style books, kind of higher level. CodeBright and Laravel Starter are both kind of introductory and kind of beginner to intermediate tutorial books, and I want to come in and write a few more advanced books myself for Laravel on some of the kind of topics that are getting discussed a lot, like the IOC and dependency injection and testing, stuff like that. So overall, I think Laravel has a pretty bright future. You know, just being at this conference has really kind of reignited my passion, I know personally, for Laravel, and just kind of shown me that there's just so many people from different walks of life, different countries that care a lot about it. And it's been really weird to see people up here like talking about code I wrote and stuff. It's just weird. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much, and it's just really refreshed me personally. So great community, you know, passionate developers. I mean, people are just like, they're just like eating it up. You know, they're just talking about it during the breaks, you know, bouncing ideas off each other, asking me hard questions, you know, for how do we do this, and you're just really like pushing the framework. So it's been really awesome. We already have a variety of cool packages. You know, talking to the Cardless guys, some has been cool. Jeffrey Way's generators look awesome. I mean, Laravel 4 is not even out yet, and there's just so much cool stuff being done. And I think this is one of the things, just speaking about PHP in general, when I look at Ruby, they just have so many cool gems and stuff. And with Composer and these new packages, I think we have the opportunity to kind of play some catch up there. And I'm just seeing a lot of cool packages that gives me some hope that PHP it's really coming a long way, like really fast in this last year. So that's really exciting me. And you know, I think we're staying true to our core. We're still accessible. I mean, and one of the things that summarizes the accessibility of the framework for me is just the routing, which is kind of everyone's first experience. The routing's so simple and accessible, and yet we're so powerful and with our ability to unit test and IOC and mock these facades, and it's just really cool how the framework has been growing with you. So pressing forward, you know, I think we need to continue being innovative and stretching ourselves. Like, I just think of the billing thing just to kind of stretch my own mind and challenge myself. Like, a lot of people would say, like, this is not even feasible, this is not possible, but I think if we're kind of staying ahead of the curve, things like PHP Artisan Deploy, some of this billing stuff, the cloud storage abstraction, but yet staying true to our philosophy of being accessible, making the syntax memorable and easy, and being welcoming of newcomers, like we've talked about so much, is the way forward. So I'm really excited about some of the stuff in the pipeline. With our release schedule, it's gonna give us a lot of stability. It's gonna give me stability, you know, of knowing when things are coming out. So I'm really excited about it. So that's kind of that's kind of my thoughts on Laravel 4. It's kind of I know that's been much anticipated. Gotten a lot of tweets, and also about the next several releases. So did those features spur any questions or concerns or thoughts?
Any ideas for cookbooks coming out for Laravel?
Yeah, a cookbook has been something I've thought about, like a unit testing book, a cookbook. We've had a few other ideas, it seems like.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on like a collaborative book where the community kind of gets involved and creates?
Yeah, O'Reilly does a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. What's an example of like a...
O'Reilly did one. It was a jQuery cookbook, I think, and they got some big guys in the community, and each person contributes one chapter.
Yeah.
And that way you can release it a lot more quickly.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
How are you gonna start taking suggestions for features and stuff in each of the planning phases? How's that process gonna go?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what Jesse was getting at. Is I don't think GitHub is the best tool for that. I don't really like working with GitHub that much in terms of discussion, but I think that's something you guys maybe can give me some ideas on, because I'm not really sure what the best forum for discussion is on that. Like a pure forum, like the Laravel forums, I don't know if that's really the best way or what. So if you guys have anything in mind, shoot me an email or tweet me or whatever on that, because... Okay, the question was there, what's the best way to discuss some of this planning phase stuff, what features we're going to implement, what's important to you guys. So, yeah, we need to come up with some ideas there.
We need an Ember.js developer who's like super experienced for Laravel.io, and a lot of awesome stuff will come out of that. But we need somebody who's good at it who can donate time.
Sean says we need someone really good at Ember.js for Laravel.io. He showed me some of the stuff they're working on. It's seriously going to blow you guys away. I wish he would have shown it during his talk.
So Ember.js, and I think there's other JavaScript templating libraries that use the handlebar, the double braces.
Mm-hmm.
Does that, how do you deal with that and Blade templating that also uses the same?
How do you guys deal with that? I never deal with that.
You don't use server-side view rendering.
Yeah.
No.
Sean says don't use server-side view rendering? What do you...
We use Tempo.js a bit, just for basic stuff, and instead of using curly braces, we use square braces. So you can configure it to use something else.
Ben says they use template.js. Tempo.js, and they configure it to use square braces instead of curly braces. It's configurable. I don't think we've ever run into that.
To be configurable. We could do that. Pull requests.
Yeah. Jonathan?
What do you think about creating a mailing list for the discussions and whatnot?
Kind of like a Google group type thing?
Yeah.
I made something like that actually, and it just wasn't very widely adopted, but we have tried that in the past. It just didn't really gain any momentum. The question was, have we ever considered starting a mailing list
I think the
for
group
Laravel?
is still there.
Yeah, it's still there. I didn't take it down.
Yeah, it's just kind of inactive.
Yeah.
I tried to get people.
There's a system I've seen in God.com, like a gaming site, but where they have within the forums they take suggestions for games that get ported, and basically they have a voting system. So then the community gets involved and see the amount of votes kind of helps dictate and guide some of the suggestions to help. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. It's an idea on voting.
Dropbox has something like that. Vote up feature.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you could have veto power.
Yeah. Yeah, voting's always a little scary. I was a little apprehensive when you said that. Over here.
For any of the books you're talking about, are you considering releasing them incrementally like Dale was talking about?
Yeah, I think they would all be incremental. I think I would be working closely with Dale on that. And I think they would all be incrementally and ebooks and stuff like that. Yeah, definitely. Let's go here again.
Did you have any scope limitations in mind when you talk about new features and whatnot? Because the billing feature seems pretty specific. So.
Yeah, the billing thing is very pie in the sky at this point. That's just a crazy idea I'm throwing out there just to start discussion. But definitely scope limitations. Are you talking about in terms of overall framework weight and responsibility? Yeah. So I think that's a valid question. He's saying something like billing. It's does that belong in the framework? And I think that's something we'll have to discuss. I kind of think of it like what do most web apps need? So the new mail stuff I think was very obvious. Most web apps are sending mail, so I don't think that's very hotly debated. The queue stuff is kind of gaining momentum. I wouldn't say that even maybe most apps use that, probably not at all. But I think it's something that's gaining steam, and it's kind of a trend. I'm kind of trying to identify trends in the web sphere. So for instance, the new returning Eloquent directly from routes for JSON. It's kind of me just kind of tipping the hat to the backbone stuff, gaining more and more and more popularity, and trying to cater to the kind of API back-end style development. So just trying to kind of identify those trends and where web development is heading and trying to stay ahead of that is something I think about a lot. And But yeah, I think that's valid, especially for billing. I think that's definitely valid to discuss.
Would you maybe start thinking about like first-party composer packages, like Laravel recommended packages?
Yeah. So like billing might be a prime example of that.
Yeah.
Like totally optional, but still developed by like core team members, kind of like stamp of approval.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is. Yeah, I think that would be a good candidate because it is something that's kind of on the borderline. Like, you go either way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good idea. So, anything else?
Have you ever considered like implementing something like the Rails asset pipeline?
Yeah, I have thought about that a lot, but I'm gonna need some help from people on that because I'm just not very knowledgeable on like front end dev, so I wouldn't even know what to give you, So, but yeah, that's something I would like to see, and yeah, it's something I've thought about for the last few months actually. So if people are good at that and know what we need, it might be cool if we could like make up a document and say these are the features we think we would need. Like I know that like the Basset package, like how is that close? Have you used that?
Yeah, I haven't used it that much to be honest, because I do most of the back end stuff. But I know that the big problem with like using the new front end stuff is like you add something like CoffeeScript, right?
Yeah.
You're adding another step to your application.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's interesting to see like how Rails and Ember and such is like solving those problems, because there's still a lot of debate about how it should be done, properly.
Yeah, I know Rails. I know that was kind of controversial at first a little bit. Yeah, I'll definitely need help on that.
Yeah, that's one of those things, like, coming from Ruby to Laravel is one of those things that you really miss.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at ascetic, so
Yeah.
But then plenty of Rails developers hate the pipeline.
Right.
Yeah.
That's definitely true.
Probably be good to interview those guys. What don't you like?
Yeah, just to kind of get it on the mic, the question was, have I ever thought about implementing something like Rails Asset Pipeline? Which, if you're not familiar with that, just kind of Google it. I think it's a relatively new feature in the Rails world, but hotly debated, it seems like. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so like in the PHP world, they like for whenever like there's an idea for a feature that should be in PHP, they create an RFC and whatnot, and then in Python it's called PEP, I think.
Yeah.
Like, do you think something like that would also be like beneficial for Laravel?
So the question was that, like, for PHP core development, you have to create an RFC if you want to add a new feature to the language itself, and then that has to get voted on by like core team members, and then it can be implemented. Honestly, it kind of seems like a pain and a lot of work, but one thing we did do kind of like that is the new proposal stuff, where we're just kind of asking people before you write, like, hey guys, I wrote this like cloud-based image resizing component. Here's all the code you can put in the core. It like integrates with the special service in the cloud. And before they write like a million lines of code, we're just trying to kind of save them the time and headache to just go ahead and make a proposal first. We can kind of kick it around and say like, this doesn't really belong in the core, or like, yeah, this sounds cool. And then before you even write it, you know if it's going to be accepted or not. Whereas if you were to just submit like 5,000 lines of code and then we say no way, then you're going to be like really ticked off that you just wasted all your time building that and it didn't get accepted. So the new proposal thing we're just kind of asking people to do is kind of a step in that direction, but not really as heavy-handed with like the voting necessarily. But it's a lot faster, obviously.
So it's like Taylor, true or false?
Anything else? These are good questions.
What was your thinking as far, other than just practicality, for having like a deploy arson command? I mean, to me, it makes so much sense, because it seems like right now frameworks, they're kind of stuck in development mode, and then I have to either do some Capistrano or Chef stuff just to get it. And
yeah.
It's not standardized. So just hearing that is really attractive. But are you trying to? I don't know, could you just talk about that in your thought process? Like, is that the responsibility for a framework? I think it is. It's cool.
Yeah.
But,
what kind of got me thinking about that was a lot of the Laravel features come out of just my experience building apps. And when I went to deploy a PHP app, I was using like Beanstalk app, like paying for it. And we were just using, the SSH commands on Beanstalk, and then we adopted Fabric at UserScape, which is Python. it just kind of seemed cool instead of having to pay or install Python and set all that up, which we're not really familiar with. If we could just do it right there in PHP, which there's already libraries to do SSH securely, so it isn't really as big of a feature as it sounds in terms of implementation, but I think it adds some value and just kind of overall coolness to what you can do out of the box. So.
You thinking about implementing any pre-process support like the Rails have for SAS or CoffeeScript built-in?
Yeah, I think that's kind of similar to what Spencer was getting at. Is are we going to implement any kind of pre-processing or CoffeeScript or anything like that? And if we do, it would definitely not be me that does it because I just don't. Right now I just don't have the knowledge set to do it. So, yeah, if you guys come up with something cool, yeah, that would be neat.
So, Laracon's been a lot of fun. It's been very helpful. Is it going to be fairly regular, yearly thing? Or is it going to branch out like Dale mentioned, Laracon Europe, Laracon, US, or all that?
So the question was, he's enjoyed Laracon, and he's wondering if it's going to be a regular thing, if we're going to get together more often.
We were thinking monthly, right? Was it monthly?
We've already got it booked and scheduled and everything. Yeah. I don't know. I hope so. I hope we have more Laracons. And, what you guys choose to organize is kind of up to y'all. I mean, I know Dale really wants to do something overseas. We have a lot of developers over there. I think that would be cool, even if it's a little smaller or bigger, who knows. But, yeah, that would be really neat. And I personally say, I want to have more Laracons, so.
If I get to my 2 cents in just for 1 second, I would definitely think yearly, for like an official thing, but definitely if people like Dale's already obviously been talking about doing something in Europe, and if anybody else wants to do even local meetups or anything like that, like obviously Userscape would be happy to sponsor those events and help out in any way we can. So, just let us know and we can, help with sponsors besides ourselves and things like that.
Yeah, I just got a PHP user group in my hometown like last month. Nobody had any idea who I was even, so it was fun.
Has there any discussion at all about like Userscape CMS built on Laravel?
You shush your mouth.
Has there been any discussion about Userscape CMS built on Laravel? No, I don't think we've ever even gotten close to that topic.
That's like the worst business in the world. I don't want anything to do with that.
Yeah. No, we haven't talked about it.
You don't want to be the next coding night?
Oh, I'd be glad to be the next coding nighter, I guess. And to a certain extent in terms of size and popularity.
I think we're past that.
Good stuff. Anything else?
Was there a reason for DC this year?
The question was there a reason for DC? I think one reason is because we knew Jessica was here, who's totally awesome and did a great job. Also, some of the practical reasons were the East Coast is densely populated, for one, and it's convenient for some people. Two, it's convenient for international people to get flights here because it's obviously not as far inland. So that's why we picked DC. It's not locked down to DC every year necessarily. So.
Somebody mentioned something yesterday about like Laravel T-shirts or something like that. Is it going to be like
yeah, Laravel swag is
the
question.
Like an official store for swag at some point.
That'd be awesome, like an Apple store.
Who's going to write the shopping cart for it?
Yeah, we need a shopping cart class.
Yeah.
Like coding.
That's the rabbit hole.
Yeah. I haven't thought about it. I probably should think about capitalizing and stuff like that more, but I just don't. But yeah.
It's like, actually, we did a lot of that. Userscape did the first run, and it's like an epic pain. Like, just to be perfectly honest, like mailing out like a T-shirt, and like you have to go to the post office with it, and like it's like $20 to send it to like some crazy faraway place. But it sounds like a project for Dale to me. I think Dale's up for that.
Dale can be our Laravel swag CEO or something.
Well, Jess had an idea on the t-shirt front. I don't even want to say exactly, but she's got a good idea, so maybe we'll have some more stuff.
Just ask her everything.
I know.
See how fast we move around here?
You should be up there.
Yep. Nice. Anything else before we wrap up? Aaron?
Can we buy something for your wife for letting you work on this so much?
Yeah, that's the question I get a lot. So he asked if they could buy something for my wife because I work on this so much. This guy from Holland actually sent us some like little waffle things. They were delicious. I mean, they were really good. But I'll just kind of address like how I work on Laravel because people seem to be curious about it. And after work, I get off at 5. I don't work on Laravel during the day. After I get off at 5, I hang out with my wife and kids until they all go to bed, which is about 9:30 or 10 for my wife, and then I work until about midnight. So, she doesn't really. It's not like I'm away from her. She's asleep, and I just work for a couple hours and then come to bed. So, yeah, not neglecting my family or anything.
Doesn't that really just make it even more ridiculous, really, how much he's done? Like, it's like, don't you just feel horrible about yourself? Like, he's like, oh, I got some spare time, like, at midnight.
As a developer new to open source, I would always love to contribute, but I just think, like, what can I do? So I'm sure, like, some of the core contributors, like, they're doing so much work. There's got to be some, like, little tedious things that, like, someone less experienced like myself, or I'm sure a ton of other people could do, where it would be cool maybe, and if this is not the right approach, just tell me to shut up, but like he mentioned, he needs an Ember, like a post, like these would be awesome if some less experienced or even more experienced guys could do, and like take some of the weight off the core developer's shoulders. Just a thought.
Yeah, so he's saying people that may not necessarily be ready to contribute to the core of Laravel, there seems to be some kind of peripheral things we need, like Sean mentioned the Ember.js, and what other things could people in the community do if they're not contributing to the core? Just off the top of my head would be documentation is a big one if you find anything there. What else do we need?
Help people on IRC and forums.
Yeah, help people on IRC and forums. Yeah, that's actually really big. I mean,
huge.
Yeah, it's because just a few of us gotten to the point where just a few of us can't keep up. So if you know anything, just kind of idle there in IRC, or maybe just try to watch it a little bit, and because questions are coming in all the time, and if you can answer them, then that would be awesome.
This
so
might only be
write tutorials.
This might only be handy to a few people, but maybe like a focus on translation. We could do with getting our documentation and everything out there in more languages, I think.
Yeah, documentation, translation. I'd say tutorials or even screencasts are really big too. I mean, those are awesome. So that's contributing to the framework in a lot of ways. So nice. I'm glad so many people are so eager to help out. It's awesome.
I guess on kind of a topic about that, I mean, you've kind of been the sole driving huge force. I mean, Dale's obviously a core team member. Are you, or do you have any plans to consider anyone else, or it's, I'm not saying you should or anything, but
yeah,
it's just kind of an going forward basis, right?
Yeah, it's weird for me because, like, I'll just be honest. Like, Laravel has just been so much like my baby for like the past like year and a half, and I feel like for like that first, so far it's been like the vision is still. I mean, I think we need to be aware the vision is still kind of fragile. Like, even though it may seem stable, like we could easily get off track if we're not like staying close to kind of our core goals of simplicity, and we could easily get carried away. So like, I still try to kind of keep it like close to the chest and hope I kind of can keep that vision stable. And I think as we move forward, especially now with like the release schedule, the vision, I think everyone's kind of embracing like this is how Laravel looks. And when you implement a new feature, you kind of know like, does this look like something Laravel would have? You know what I mean? Like the syntax. So I think the vision's getting more and more instilled in the community of kind of the overall style. And as that becomes more stable, I think I feel more comfortable like bringing other people in because they've had time to say like, okay, I know how things work in Laravel, or I kind of know like kind of what the syntax should look like, what the style should look like, and just kind of overall quality of the APIs and stuff. So yeah, I think moving forward it's something I'm going to have to do eventually just because of pure time constraints. And thankfully, the community's getting to the point where we're getting more and more experts in the community that can contribute and have, plenty of knowledge to build features. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have any like official announcements or anything in mind, but yeah, it's something I'm going to have to address. But yeah, but the reason I haven't so far is just to keep that vision like very stable. And I know I mentioned like DHH, who I think about a lot because Rails has been so successful. And I listened to an interview with him, and he said he did the same thing, where the whole idea and core philosophy of the framework could easily have been lost, like in those first couple of years, and that he actually didn't even share like any commit rights until like the first year was over, just so he could kind of like entrench the whole style of Rails into it. So I think we're getting to that point, though. I think people get it,
Have you okay.
Either way.
have you put any thought into how you'll handle migrations with Artisan Deploy?
Yeah, well, with Artisan Deploy, I don't know if you remember from the Fabric thing, but let me just kind of pull up Sublime. So, like, say I'm just gonna don't take this, as like final, but this is something like it could look like. Like, let's just say for kicks, it's called like SSH. I don't know. I'm gonna say. Yeah. Yeah. Like, say it looks something like this. And say you like get pulled. And so like it would SSH in and run whatever commands you wanted. So like if you wanted to, you would do like server run, PHP artisan migrate, whatever stuff you want to do on deploy. That's what I mean, but it's not that complicated because you're just giving commands you want run. So it would be kind of whatever you want. That's definitely not the final syntax it would look like. Does that make sense? That sound kind of cool?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Sounds awesome.
So this is actually not a question. It's just like sort of like a compliment. Like one thing I've noticed about Laravel, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, but like as I'm working with the framework, a lot of times like I'm wondering, can I do this, like anything like in the framework, right? Like, hey, can I do this type of thing? And then I just basically write how I think you would write it, and it just works because you actually thought about that. It's like, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but I've experienced this.
He says Laravel can read his mind, basically.
So like, I don't know like how you ended up thinking that way, but that's pretty sweet. Like I don't even have to look at documentation. I just think about. I think this is probably how you would do it. So.
Awesome. He also just intuitively understands Laravel. That's good though. I hope it's like that.
Thanks. It's the method names. The
Yeah.
verbs.
Yeah, they're short.
They're really awesome.
Actually, it happens a lot in IRC where people come in and ask, like, literally, can I use this syntax? And we're just like, that's the syntax. Right?
Yeah, I've had that.
That's what you do.
So,
just run.
I saw another hand. Ben?
Oh, it's just Alex in front of me was saying about if you're not. So I'm just noticing you've got like 4 IRC icons in your doc. Anyway, sorry, Alex was saying if you're not real comfortable with contributing to the framework or whatever, one cool thing, sometimes I get bored and out of a night time and I go through issues that are proposals and just because I can, for fun, just write up a pull request for it.
Yeah.
One cool way to contribute if you're not real competent or you're not comfortable or you whatever, is throw up issues and like proposal issues and say, hey, what's everyone think of this? Because there's been some awesome stuff that people have come up with. That is not yourself. Other people in the community have come up with some cool ideas. And it's really good.
Proposal
So throw issues up,
Yeah, proposal issues especially are awesome because there's almost minimal time investment for the person making it. It's just throwing an idea out there. The core team members don't feel bad for saying no because you haven't actually written any code yet necessarily, so we haven't wasted your time. So yeah, proposals are awesome. I love proposals. We've still got some out there like the master-slave Eloquence stuff that I haven't closed that are just open because they're just kind of proposals out there that we're still kind of talking about. So I like those. Yeah, it's a good idea. If you have ideas, just make a proposal. Nobody's time's wasted. So cool. Last call for any questions? Oh, did we have one? No? Awesome. This has been a great conference. Thanks so much, guys. It's been awesome.
All right. That's
over.
it.
It's over.
So yeah. So now everybody's.